I've worked 2 jobs my entire adult life. I was divorced with 2 children living in an apartment.
This is Blue Collar Millionaires Member Spotlight. Today, Daniel Gainey, the former nuclear facility manager who built a chimney empire on loyalty and 1099 contractors.
I had 5 people going through training that had left 6-figure jobs to come to work for me. These guys were making over $2,000 a week each for over 6 weeks, plus all the equipment. I was a little concerned about the cash flow. Luckily,
there's 2 things there. It's not being afraid to ask for help, not being afraid to look and to ask questions, regardless of how you think you come across, and then going all in. Blue Collar Millionaires, ladies and gentlemen, we've got Daniel Gainey with us today. This is going to be a treat. This is a member spotlight in the form of a podcast. And I asked Daniel last week if he would spend a couple of minutes chatting with me so we can give the listeners a little bit of value from a completely different perspective. And Daniel, you're with Advanced Chimney Sweep, 22 years with the company, started off law enforcement, transitioned to DoD contractor. Give us a little bit of your background and kind of how Advanced Chimney Sweep came to be.
Yeah. Hey, man. Well, I'm honored to be on the show tonight. I do appreciate the opportunity. It means a lot to me. But yeah, so 2004, around the beginning of 2004, I was a sergeant with the local sheriff's office. Just needed a way to make ends meet. I've worked 2 jobs my entire adult life, and tried a little bit of everything, really. And a friend of mine, father was a chimney sweep, and I just helped him part-time, and, to the point where he said, "Hey, why don't you start your own?" And I kind of started my own in a neighboring town, just thinking, hey, I'm going to do a couple of jobs a week just to make ends meet. And kind of fast forward a little bit, the business grew. It grew year over year, but I was mainly just doing chimney sweeping, chimney cleaning kind of thing. And got out of law enforcement after 16 years, went to work in a nuclear industry for the federal government, nuclear weapons industry. Went there as an inspector, and radiological protector inspector, and worked that job for 12 years up until 2021. But there were really some very key pivotal moments that occurred in the business that really launched the success, and not only just those pivotal moments, but really being able to attract the right people to come in and come in as a technician and really hit the ground running.
So before we go into some of those pivotal moments, why the transition from law enforcement to something completely different in the private sector?
So, that was about the time that the world was changing, right? Law enforcement got to the point to where we just wasn't respected anymore. So many things changed. A lot of politics got involved, and it was just time for me to go. So, took a couple of classes at the local technical college in radiation protection. My brother actually worked at the site. And so I had already had some insight about, kind of what it was, and was fortunate enough to get in as a radiological protection inspector, continuing my education journey during that job, and actually, worked my way up to a master's degree that was paid for by the federal government. And that
awesome.
Actually afforded the opportunity for me to grow within, that contractor world, and where I managed one of the facilities.
Okay.
So I went from a inspector to a nuclear safety engineer to back to a field manager, and then was able to make it to a facility manager until 2021. And at that point, that's where the business had grown to the point to where I had to make a choice.
Gotcha. So up until that point, you were balancing the 2 at the same time. Is that correct?
I was.
Got it. How did you, I know there's a lot of folks out there, W-2s who are balancing. I was one of them for a very long time. What was that moment that kind of hit you, that gave you the justification enough to say, I'm going to leave it and I'm going to go and do this all by myself? Was it a financial figure? Was it a time thing? What was that?
Man, so it was hard for me. Even it ultimately it was the financial, right? The
Yeah.
business had grown to the point to where I was able to go. But it was hard for me because I worked so hard to get to the point to where I was, the position I was in as the, radiological protection facility manager.
Uh-huh.
And, I gave up all of that hard work, to get there. So now I still do some independent consulting with
Absolutely.
them, but it's a couple, just maybe 2 months out the year, 6 weeks out of the year.
Okay.
So, but man, it was almost like a status, right? So I gave that up. But it was really the financials, and something had to go because the business at that point had grown. And it was at that time was taking a good bit of my time. So I would go to the facility and manage the facility, manage all the personnel, get off at 5 o'clock. On the way home, I'm already on the phone. I get home, I eat supper, and I'm on that phone and doing, things on the computer and, having to order things and supplies and inventory and trying to fulfill all of my technicians within the company's needs. So sometimes I was up to 11 o'clock at night, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and then getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and running the whole thing again. And then my weekends were the same thing. It was, Saturday, now I can spend a full day on the business. So something had to give, and it just got to the point financially to where I knew I could go. I knew I would be okay. But again, I was giving up something I worked so hard for to get to the position I was in. But ultimately, it was what was best for me and my family. I had kids, that I felt like some of that took time away from them.
Absolutely.
And so I had to make the best decision for the family, and it was 100% the business, man.
Yeah, and I think Jim Rome talked about this a lot. I always listen to him, and he's got a lot of great quotes. He talks about when you invest the time as a W-2, there's only so much you're going to be able to get out of that in terms of your return on investment. However, when you invest it as an entrepreneur, as an owner, you're going to maximize that and get tenfold, 20-fold perhaps. So let's transition a little bit. You talked about pivotal moments. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that first pivotal moment was in your business that you can kind of look back on, that is a story that maybe someone can relate to on Blue Collar Millionaire, that kind of set you up in your business for success?
Oh man, yeah. So it was 2012. It was the end of 2012. I was divorced with 2 children, living in an apartment. I got a divorce in 2010 and started dating a woman at the time who is now my wife. And
Nice.
it was toward the end of 2012, and 2 months into the relationship, I'm in an apartment. And being a single father, trying to wrestle with so many different things with kids and everything else. Bottom line is I couldn't pay my electricity bill. So here I am sitting in the dark, not knowing what to do, where to turn, right?
Yeah.
And so
back against the wall.
Man, it was. And as humiliating at the time as it was, I went to, at the time, my girlfriend, and said, I need help. But it was a very pivotal moment for me, because I knew right then, this will never happen to Daniel again. And I told her that this won't happen again. She was a school teacher. She wasn't making, a lot of money. She was struggling on her own as well. But, she scraped enough together to give to me to turn my lights back on.
That's
And
awesome.
And man, I promised her, I said, this will never happen again. And so that's the time where I knew, okay, it's time to really dig in, spend some time on the business, make this thing take off. And, as a part-time venture at the time, but make it into something that, as together we could, afford to live, afford to make
Absolutely.
these ends meet and not have to worry about this again.
100%. I think two things that stand out to me about what you just indicated. Number one, I've always been a proponent of this: closed mouths don't get fed. So when you reached out, that probably took some courage to ask that.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
imagine,
Mhm.
the spot that you were in, number one. And then number two, when we think about partnerships, so many of us often think about it just in terms of like a business partner that you go in with equity on, but there's way more than that. A significant other, a spouse, a partner who trusts and believes in you is perhaps one of the biggest supporters and one of the biggest catalysts for success, I think. And she had your back. It sounded like it. Absolutely.
There is no doubt that 100% without her and without God, I
Yep.
would not be where I'm sitting today.
I love that, man.
There can be, I can't say enough about the support system that I've had with her through the education, working, in the nuclear industry, going and her pushing me to do better, her pushing me to get
Oh
my
yeah,
degree,
that's awesome, man.
her pushing me to, hey, let's get this business rolling, even to the point of she's out there holding a ladder for me. She's out there, trying to get on a roof with me, when I was doing some of the work myself, and I just, yeah, that just, but you know what, it made us closer,
Absolutely.
and we built, you know, at this point we built a legacy.
Okay, absolutely. So just to have breadcrumbs from, you said this was 2012. What was your business doing in revenue in 2012?
2012, somewhere around 70,000.
Got it. Okay.
Uh, yep.
And that was the time you had went all in on this idea that I'm going to devote more concentrated attention to this business.
Yep. I really
Okay.
dug in and, really started, doing what it took to make it successful.
Okay. What was that pivotal moment number two for you in business, and when did that occur?
Yeah, so around 2018, at that point, we were around $120,000 in revenue a year. Still just basically sweeping chimneys, maybe putting on flue caps. Um, and I read a book by Mark Stoner, Blue Collar Gold: How to Build a Service Business from the Ground Up. Mark is also in the chimney business. He's got a really big company in Nashville. And it's a short book, but I'm telling you, it was just an amazing read because I just felt like it told my story. He pretty
Mhm.
much faced the same things that I faced. The only difference is that he actually fell off of a roof and couldn't work.
Oh
So
no.
he got injured and at that point figured out, okay, well, being a sole operator, basically you just own your own job. But what if
Hmm.
something happens? If all his revenue stops. So how can he transition that from a one man show to where if you know something happens with one of his employees now he's able to keep going. So build it big enough to where something happened to you or something happened to me, the business doesn't just stop. And
100%.
and so that really resonated with me, and I reached out to Mark and um really it was, hey, you need to get some professional development. You're really not doing the right thing in the chimney industry because you're just going in and sweeping. You're not really doing the right inspections. You're leaving people vulnerable. They're trusting you, and you're leaving them in a false sense of security kind of thing. So you're really not doing it right. So you need to get some professional development. So, and the very first thing that I could go to was a conference up in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and the end of 2018. And man, did it open my eyes. It just,
Hmm.
It opened my eyes to so many things that I was doing wrong, and things that I wasn't doing that I should have been doing. And there was Mark and another friend of mine actually said something. If you do the right thing, the money will follow.
Mm-hmm.
And that resonated with me as well. Is just do the right thing.
Yep.
Don't worry about the money. If you do the right thing, the money's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that could be so many different things. It could be being on time, being professional, do what you say you're going to do the job right. So, it meant so much to me.
Yeah.
So I went to that conference, was really blown away, brought a lot of things back with me, and I was just extremely excited for growth. I met Mark there. He invited me to his business in Nashville. I had hired a technician kind of about that same time frame that went with me to Nashville, and man, we learned a lot. We learned a lot about the repair side, things that we should have been doing all along. So from 2018, that revenue at that time was about $120,000 a year.
Okay.
After that, in 2019, my revenue went up to 495,000. In 2020, it doubled to 1 million. And at that point, I had brought on another technician.
Okay.
And then in 2021, it doubled again to 2 million. And then 2021 to 2024, we stayed around the $2.5 million mark until January 2024, which was another big pivotal moment for me.
Okay. So before we go into January through now, these are phenomenal numbers, by the way. 120 to 495 to 1 mil to 2 mil. Rewinding just a little bit to that that seminar or that conference that you went to with your mentor. What were some of the things that you were doing wrong that you had to correct? And were those things that you corrected success factors? Can you attribute your success over the next couple of years and the revenue growth to those things that you corrected?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we were going in and just sweeping chimneys. We really wasn't doing the proper inspections.
Mm-hmm.
And truth be told, 95% of all masonry chimneys have defects in them. And the reason why, just real short story, if you see black mold on the outside or black on the outside of the chimney, a lot of people think, well, that's just soot from burning fire. That's not soot. That's mold because it's absorbing exuberant amounts of water. That water gets into the chimney system. It mixes with the soot and creosote inside. It creates a small amount of sulfuric acid, and it just annihilates inside the chimney. We didn't know that.
Wow.
So we bought a camera system and started running cameras and seeing these deficiencies, showing them live to the customer. And, then we just started doing those repairs. We were repairing the inside of the chimneys. We were, doing the water intrusion packages on the outside of chimneys, putting on full coverage chimney caps, not just a little flue cap, but a full coverage chimney cap that covers the whole chimney like a roof would with the overhang. And waterproofing chimneys, and then repairing the inside of chimneys. So, it really, our services blossomed tenfold just because of the training that we got from one conference.
This is huge, man, because you probably didn't have the bandwidth to do all of that while you were simultaneously balancing the W-2 job, right?
Yeah, absolutely not. And I could have never done that if it wasn't for the people that are, I hired in 2018, 2019, and are still with me today.
That's phenomenal. And I think when you surround yourself with like-minded people who are striving and who are giving you that honest feedback and telling you, hey, Daniel, you need to work on getting maybe a little more sophisticated. You need to work on more systems. You need to work on offering more services and more products to the clients. Because what you're referring to right now, though I don't know the chimney sweep and that industry as well, most industries have this educational value piece that you add, that you offer. Think HVAC plumbing, they have ancillary services that they can offer. Restoration is very similar, mold protection. There's so much that's out there that, if you add that education and that value to the client, you are unlocking a new need that they need to have met, or a new desire or want that they have, but they just don't communicate that as well. I think that's phenomenal, man. Okay, just to get an idea, from 18 through around 21, how many employees or how many techs did you have for those years?
3.
The
I
whole
had
time?
3. Yep, the whole time, and I still have those same 3 guys, just basically because they grew as the business grew. And
Wow.
I'm a firm believer that, if you hire somebody for $15 an hour, you're going to get $15 an hour talent, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I wasn't out there trying to hire somebody for $15 or $20 an hour,
You're
you
paying them
know,
well.
yeah, I'm paying them very well. So, in this industry, it is tough finding folks,
Yeah.
because what's the first thing that you think of if I approach you and say, hey, come to work for a chimney sweep company, right?
Yeah.
What, $50,000-$60,000 a year, maybe?
Yeah. I'm gonna
I,
fall.
yeah. I, I've got guys making over $300,000 a year. Okay.
Wow. This is
So
phenomenal, man.
yeah. So, but they have the talent and the skill set that I was
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah. Because this
And,
is a
that's
niche
what's so
industry, correct?
important.
Yeah.
What's that?
This is a niche industry. This is not, how many
Absolutely.
competitors do you have? And by the way, where are you located, Daniel? Where are your businesses at? And what does that landscape look like in terms of competition?
Yeah. So I live in Aiken, South Carolina, which borders Augusta, Georgia. My business really for, the first 18 years centered around the Augusta, Georgia area.
Okay.
We've done some business in Aiken, but now I'm in Augusta, Aiken, Columbia, South Carolina, and this year we've actually doubled in size, and we're now in Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina, as well as the Hilton Head, Beaufort area.
Wow, man. So I'm just astounded by 3 techs being able to support, from a revenue perspective, going from 120 to 495 to 1 mil to 2 mil. Your cost of labor went down significantly as it relates to your top line revenue. So your profits were in line with this growth, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And the guys that I brought in had a skill set that helped fuel that growth. A lot of times, especially in the blue collar industry, what I found is, guys are really scared to price their service for what it's really worth, right? A lot of times it's not what we do, but it's what we know how to do. How many people know chimneys? How many people know how to break out terracotta flue tiles, put a stainless steel liner in, reconstruct the smoke chamber, pour the vermiculite insulation around, reconstruct the crown on top, right? How many people can
Yeah.
do that? So, we get top dollar for it.
Mhm. As you should.
And, we'll charge $15,000 for that job. And sometimes we can complete those jobs in a day
Wow.
to a day and a half. But again, it's not what we do, it's what we know how to do. And
Mhm.
that's something that my lead technician, he was a district sales manager for Terminex. And what he brought to the table was that same philosophy is it's not what you do, it's what you know how to do. And I was underpricing everything. And so he brought that to the table that, hey, we can get a lot more. How many homeowners are going to climb on their roof and do this kind of work? Right.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
and he,
because
he proved that to me. He went out and he said, I'm going to double my prices today on what I try to sell. And we don't try to sell anything. It's,
yeah,
hey, this is your problem. This is what it's going to take to fix it. You take it or you leave it. There's no
yeah.
pressure as far as we're
Mhm.
concerned. But he went out and did 4 jobs and he sold 3 of them. And he came back saying, see, I told you I doubled the price on everything that I offered the customer, and 3 out of 4 bought it.
Geez. These technicians that you have, Daniel, are they W-2? Are they 1099? What are they?
Yeah, so they're 1099. Each one of them own their own LLC.
Smart. That's
Um,
the way it should be.
yep. And so they drive their own vehicles. They use their own tools. They control their own schedule. Being a 1099, being a subcontractor, you're I'm very limited on what I can control as
Mhm.
far as they're concerned. So they control their own schedule. They even price their own jobs. I don't control pricing. The only price that I control, basically, I'm a lead generator. The call comes into the office that says, "Hey, I want to get my chimney inspected and or cleaned. What does it cost?" Okay, what's $275 for a full cleaning and inspection? Okay, great. Book me. All right. That's the only thing that I control is that original appointment. So then that appointment is set on on one of the subcontractors' schedules, on whatever day and times that they picked, and let us know, "Hey, I want these jobs. I want inspections on these days of the weeks at these times." So those jobs are set on their schedule, and from there, that technician will handle that lead from cradle to grave. They'll go do the initial inspection. If there's a deficiency, they price what it's going to take to, fix the job, because they know what it's going to take as far as costs are concerned, what they have to get to be able to fix it. So they will price the job. They will get the down payment. They will, leave that job and order all the parts and pieces that they need to fix it. They will keep in constant communication with the customer. Once they get everything in, they'll schedule the job to go back to complete the repair. They'll go get the repair, and then they'll get a check for the remaining balance at the end.
Got it.
Basically, then on Fridays they come, they put their checks on the counter. We reconcile everything. I give them a check, and we're done.
Are you cleaning any chimneys these days or no?
Oh, no, no, absolutely not. I hadn't. No,
That
no, no.
time is come and gone, huh?
Those times are
Okay.
over with.
What point of sale are you currently using?
So we're using ServicePal
Okay.
right now. It does what we need it to do. It handles all of our scheduling. It handles all of our invoicing, our proposals, our inspection reports. We even run our credit card payments through them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an all-in-one for us.
Does it have a marketing plugin for you to nurture clients? And if so, are you devoting money to ad spend right now with these numbers?
So I do have a marketing agency, Brandtastic.
Okay.
It's Frank Motola out of Florida. He does a wonderful job for us.
Mhm.
I'm doing ad spend through him for Google ads and
Yep.
Facebook ads and stuff like that. But Brandtastic controls all of my marketing.
Understood. Okay.
Um,
Very
the-
good.
I would say the one thing that I really fail at doing at this point is follow-ups. We're not great on follow-ups. So
Got it.
that's probably something, and really that's something I've talked about in a group, and I believe that, Kevin's given me some insight on how I need to fix that, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah, most definitely. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but it sounds like things are going really well for you. Okay, so you talked about a couple of pivotal moments. We're at 2021. You're doing 2 mil top line. Talk to me a little bit more about that third pivotal moment and
Oh,
bring
man.
us home from 22 to now.
Wow. Yeah. So this is, man, I still get chill bumps talking about this one. So I just happened to see the Blue Collar Millionaire, Facebook group. I think it come across as, one of those little suggestions to join, and I kind of clicked through it and saw some posts and things like that. And of course, I saw Chris Garrison, one of the ad owners there. I saw him, some of his content, and I started following his content. And then I joined the Blue Collar Millionaire group back in 2023. I don't remember how many members there were at the time, but there were not near as many as there are now.
Yeah.
But kept following the group and actually started, I guess, becoming a little more interactive with the posts. Somebody would ask a question, I would kind of try to join in, help them with what little bit of knowledge that I had about the situation, and try to help. And then in January 2024, Kevin and Chris decided to do, I believe it was one of their first meetups, if I'm not mistaken, in Atlanta. and it was at a very nice bar and grill, where they, kind of had some food, and hey, just it's free. Y'all come in, let's just do this meetup. And I'm like, man, I get to meet these two guys, right? And so I went, to be very intentional on meeting Kevin and Chris. I wanted to talk to them because I knew from just following their content that those two guys were the real deal. And I got to the meetup, and I was just absolutely blown away with all of the people that were there, right? And there were some people that was, had businesses smaller than mine, but there were definitely people there that had businesses much bigger than mine. And to see the caliber of people that I met at that meeting, and then having the opportunity to meet firsthand with Kevin and Chris, and tell them about my business, and tell them kind of how everything come along, and got feedback the first night I met them. I brought back so much stuff just from that one meetup. Yep. And at that point I was hooked, right? So I knew at that point that was my third pivotal moment, because I immediately, when I was given the opportunity to join the BoardRoom Elite group, through Blue Collar Millionaire, I knew, okay, this is it. Because yes, I've been in mastermind groups and conventions and meetings and coaching within the chimney industry, but that only took me to a certain level, right? I had kind of topped out on what that provided.
Hit a ceiling.
Yeah, I hit a ceiling there. But man, getting into the BoardRoom Elite, it put it into overdrive. There's so many things that Kevin and Chris have given me. But I'll say this: the biggest investment you can make is in yourself. And I 100%. felt like I've done that, because everything that they have put together and I've had the opportunity to attend, I made sure I was there, because I brought home so much from every time that I've gone to every meetup or event they've had. I've brought home things and implemented every time. And I just, so just from meeting them, I went to that meeting very comfortable, right? I was at about $2.5 million. I was comfortable. I thought, hey, I'm locked into a place to where I really don't want to experience any more growth. I was comfortable. But then getting around people that were doing 10 times what I was doing, getting around people like Kevin, and learning about his business and things he was involved in, I knew it was time for me to get out of my comfort zone.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they did. They got me out of my comfort zone. And so I came home, and I knew right then, I told my wife, I said, all right, honey, it's time to grow again. Right.
Yeah.
And in between that time, in between the January of 2024 until, I would say, March of this year. So, talking with Kevin over those 15 months, I had several phone conversations with him. Kevin actually came and visited my operation here. He went out and rode with me. We went to the different job sites that were going on that day, and he met my technicians doing the job. I will have to say, I believe he was impressed with what we had going.
That's awesome.
But during that drive, and during, he got to see firsthand of what we did day to day, what the business actually looked like. And then from there, man, he just started throwing out things. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And in March of this year, I committed to doubling the size of my company. And I'm just going to give it to the blue collar millionaire guys, to Kevin and Chris. I would not have done that had I not met those guys, because I was comfortable. They totally got out of my comfort zone, got me out of my comfort zone. They, you know, I can come home, be a little bit stressed, feel a little anxiety about something I've got going on. I just pick up the phone and call Kevin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He answers on the other end. Hey man, this is what I've got. And just to be able to talk through that with somebody who understands, all of my friends are either former law enforcement, they're in the nuclear industry, they're childhood friends. They're not business associates, right? So I can't have these conversations with my network of people locally.
Yeah.
So to have the opportunity to go to Atlanta and to meet up with these guys and be able to just unload all of my business passion, my business problems, my thoughts on things, and get feedback and be around a lot of the people that's going through the same thing. You can't put a price tag on that. You really can't.
Yeah. I've always said that having a group of like-minded individuals who are successful in their own right, not only does it serve as almost like a retainer of professionals that you would otherwise pay money for, but it also allows for you to review what they do, share their best practices, and you assimilate with them. Because the more these concepts become commonplace for us, the more we begin to talk about numbers like this and the trajectory that you're on and that other business members are on, the more that becomes the common denominator amongst everybody else. And when you're not living up to that, you push yourself. And no pressure, no diamonds. I mean, it sounds like you absolutely did that. So in March, you committed to doubling the business. That was kind of what you had in your mind. How's it going?
Man, so we will go from $2.5 million in revenue in 2024 to crossing 4 million this year. We will 100% hit 5 million next year. And that's at about a 23% net.
Wow.
So
still 3 techs?
Well, so I now have 10 trucks on the road.
Oh, nice.
I talked through the whole transition, how I was going to get there with Kevin. Pretty much made my own Chimney Academy where the new guys came in. I had different fireplace systems set up in a training room, kind of walked them through from the very basics of anatomy of a factory built fireplace and chimney system, anatomy of a masonry chimney system, what each part and piece was, what it did, and what it would take to fix it. And then through the inspection process, the safety process, the codes and standards that we have to follow. And those guys hit the road in October, and it's been phenomenal. And again, it's all about attracting the right talent. And I'll go back to that because, I'm not finding these people on Craigslist.
Mm-mm.
Right. You have to attract the right talent. And the only way you're going to do that, people with the right talent and skill set aren't out actively. They're not unemployed. Right. They're gainfully employed. They may not enjoy what they're doing, but they're employed.
100%.
So you have to make it attractive for that person to leave. And man, I've got a 25-year-old, I call him a kid. But I've got a 25-year-old Thomas that I hired him last September. And I hired him because I could see the drive in him. I could see the talent in him. His dad was actually at the time my credit card processor, which unfortunately I had to let go because it all got, in with ServicePal. But, his father introduced me to a son and to Thomas. And I could tell Thomas was he's going to be a winner. And so I showed him the process. I put him through the training, and he embraced the training. He embraced the process. And now at 25 years old, he's already sold over $1.2 million in a year. And the year's not up.
Wow.
But he's constantly striving to improve, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
just constantly striving to improve the process, improve his process. And another, just another real big win for me from the blue collar group is I met another police officer up in New Jersey, Tom. And he put out a post on Blue Collar Millionaire. Hey, I'm a police officer, looking to do something part-time. I think he was looking at maybe doing some concrete refinishing or something like that. What is it that you do, that I can do to make some extra money? And I thought, okay, I'll put it out there. So I just said, hey, I was in law enforcement 16 years. That way we had a connection.
Yeah,
and
you can assimilate with him.
I can assimilate with him. And I do chimneys. That's all I said. Well, he ended up sending me a private message saying, hey, talk to me a little bit more about this. So we had some dialogue back and forth. And then I was like, okay, well, I don't check my messenger a lot. Here's my cell phone number. Text me. So we started texting each other. Then we started FaceTiming each other while he was working, and it just went back and forth until he said, hey, I really want to take a jump. I'm like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, come stay with me for a week at my house. So this guy flew from New Jersey. I picked him up from the airport in Augusta. He stayed here at my house and my wife and I. He went out and rode with all my technicians for a week, saw kind of what was going on, and he was totally blown away. Totally blown away by what he just saw. Went back to New Jersey, kind of implemented some things, started his own business. He was fairly successful because he was doing what I was doing. He was working police department full time and, trying to run his chimney business part time, but it's hard. And finally he just said, I want to make the commit. I want to come to work for you, because he knew the amount of money he could make. So in a year's time, we met on Facebook. Tom just had his first child. So congratulations to Tom and Brittany.
Yeah, congrats, Tom and Brittany.
He moved from New Jersey to Greenville, bought a huge house in Greenville, quit his career. That's the only career he's ever known. So Brittany is also a police officer in New Jersey. She's out on medical leave because of the baby. She will leave and also move down here. So he's changed his whole life centered around a post that was made on the Blue Collar Millionaire.
Unreal. I talked with Kevin and Chris about this a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta on the podcast. And I said it earlier, closed mouths don't get fed. But the reality of it is if you don't at least put yourself out there in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a small question like that, you never know what the universe holds. And I'm seeing a trend here. For starters, the trend is that you're a smart man, Daniel, I can tell. And you're surrounding yourself with the right people. But when you brought on that initial mentor and took the stuff from the book and started to implement things, and then you attached yourself to Blue Collar Millionaire, is when your scale began to occur. And even back that up even more, when you went all in on this with your epiphany, is when you really started to see things really scale for you. So there's two things there. It's not being afraid to ask for help, not being afraid to look and to ask questions, regardless of how you think you come across, and then going all in and doubling down, because that's where I think a lot of success is found, or at least that's where impact is made. And then you can find success with that. That's awesome, man. Two quick questions here. You scaled fairly quickly here from these numbers. What risks did you face because of that, and how did you mitigate those? Sounds like you went from a couple techs or a couple vehicles to a lot of vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
In that growth, did you have some growing pains that impacted the business, or was this, for the most part, because you had implemented this academy, you were really educating the folks from the beginning with a solid foundation, so you mitigated the risk with that?
Yeah, kind of a mix of the two. I think the biggest thing at the time was cash flow. because it takes a lot to get started with equipment, right? And then, extra insurance and just even though they're 1099 and they pretty much provide a lot of their own things, I do provide some of the basic, like the big dual motor HEPA-Vax, that's $3,000. The chimney cameras, that's $3,000. So, there's some equipment that I did provide in the very beginning. All the specialized tools they buy on their own, but there was a large cost involved, and that was a pretty big risk because, okay, now I'm putting all this money out there, and honestly, I didn't know. I was a little scared in the beginning. Will I be able to fund all that, from the start? And luckily, I took some of that, I guess some of those concerns to Kevin, and I said, hey, I'm concerned about my cash flow, but I had built the relationship up enough with Kevin, and Kevin knew my operation, and we've become close enough to say, hey, I got you. Go with it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So I knew I had his backing, which meant so much to me. And then it was just pushing forward and making sure that the guys were of the right caliber. I hired two other friends of mine that were police officers that have also retired from service. So now there's four of us in the company. And they're doing great. And then I hired another guy off of a recommendation from Thomas's dad, that, hey, he said, you may want to look at this guy, and was able to hire him as well. So I think the biggest risk was, making sure I had enough, the funding to get it up and off the ground, because doubling the size of a company isn't cheap. And then, being able to pay, and plus paying the guys during their training time, right? I mean, they went through 6 weeks of training. So I had 5 people going through training that had left 6-figure jobs to come to work for me.
There's some pressure on you with that, right?
So that's pressure. Well, I wasn't going to let them come to me and lose money during training. So I had to meet their current salary during training. So these guys were making over $2,000 a week each for over 6 weeks, plus all the equipment and everything else that it took to get it up. So that's where I was a little concerned about the cash flow. Luckily, it supported itself, and, I didn't have to borrow any money. And everybody got through the training, and everybody has, and I knew they would, but everybody's been very successful in the new position.
I love that, man. So that brings us to current day. Business is doing well. Talk to us about your goals. What are you trying to do with this, Daniel? Are you interested in exiting? Are you scaling? Are you just holding this? And is it just it sounds like it's a passion for you. It sounds like your level of involvement has decreased because you have a significant 1099 pool of workers that are just take tremendous ownership. This is very hard to find. So what do you do with this now?
Yeah. So we went into a new market in Greenville, and it has absolutely exploded. I believe that we'll continue to grow that market. I think that I have pretty much hit the ceiling of growth in my current market here, even though it's great. I mean, I can't, it's a really good market. So, but I think this model could be implemented anywhere. It could be implemented anywhere throughout the country because there's a need for this. So I believe that I will continue to grow the Greenville market. I believe it will be just as big as the market I've had for 22 years. And then at some point, there's been thoughts of exiting, but my fear of exiting is, I want to make sure I'm very loyal to my guys because my guys are very loyal to me. And I don't want to do anything that's going to negatively impact them. Tom changed his whole life by moving from New Jersey to South Carolina to come to work for me. And I know, he 100% loyal. So I think that I'll continue running it the way that it's being ran now. We'll experience some more growth, a little bit more growth. I don't think it'll be, doubling the size again. I believe that I'll add, 2 to 4 more trucks over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. And then maybe when it's time to exit, I may do an ESOP, where it's an employee
stock ownership program.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And when you are that person, you're playing the long game, you're playing chess, and you attract and you maintain employees for a longer period of time. Man, Daniel, that is awesome story. I didn't know all this stuff, man. You're probably gonna have some people reach out and say, "I want to go do chimneys with you."
Hey, if they got the right talent, man, and they're willing to move to Greenville, I got a place for them.
That is really cool. Okay, just kind of wrapping this up here. When we think about your career doing this, under the umbrella of scale and success, what do you think has been your biggest lesson learned?
Surrounding yourself with the right talent, investing in yourself, surrounding yourself with the right people. I cannot say enough, and I send Kevin a text all the time that he has no idea the impact he's had on me and my family. So surrounding yourself with the right people, getting in these groups, investing in yourself, you'll always take something away when you're around like-minded people.
100%.
A lot of people consider the $1,000 a month or whatever it is an expense. It is 100% not an expense. It is an investment that has just paid dividends 100 times over for me and will continue to do so year after year. I just can't. I can't thank you guys enough. All of the blue collar guys that make this happen day to day. You're changing people's lives, man. You really are. And there's no way to know just how many lives you change, because I know what the group has meant to me and my family. And it's not just changed my life, but it's going to change my life, my whole family's life for generations.
I love it, man.
I
think one of the big things is it's there's a lot of authentic people in the group, and they're not in it for other reasons than to try to add value to help, because we know reciprocity exists, and when you add value, it typically comes back to you. That is awesome, Daniel. Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing your story tonight. I want to respect your time. That was an hour of your time, and not only, I think, did you provide the values, the listeners a whole lot of value, you gave a lot to me today on this phone call alone, from the education piece to your academy to go vertically integrated into control the caliber of your employees, to also letting some of that control go in allowing your 1099 employees to go cradle to the grave, because when they have complete ownership or total ownership, there's more accountability on the line there. Despite some people thinking that you lose control, you might, but when you have the right person at the helm who's compensated well, it's on them.
Every one of my guys are better doing what they do than I am.
Yep.
If I had to get my chimney worked on, I couldn't do it. They're better than I am.
100%. And the fact that you recognize that makes you even more successful. Daniel, are you open to anybody reaching out to you if they have questions? And if so, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So, I'm on Facebook, Daniel Gainey. You can email me at dwgainey@gmail.com. Reach out, or, reach out through Messenger. And I'll be glad to, I love talking shop. So I would be open to talk to anybody about anything. So reach out, and would be more than honored to help anybody.
Awesome. All right, folks. Daniel Gainey with Advanced Chimney Sweep. Daniel, thank you very much for your time today, man. I hope you have a great day.
Appreciate everybody. Thank you.